Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Commerce Lab, the place of everything related to Amazon FBA and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy. Today, we have another special guest. His name is Danny McMillan. He is the founder and host of Seller Session, which is one of the top podcasts and live events in the space when it comes to advanced Amazon sellers. Because of the extensive experience around Amazon that Danny has, I thought that one of the best topics we can touch today for sure is the A9 algorithm, which is going to be the thing that we're going to be talking today. Now, without any further delay, let me introduce you, Danny. Thank you for coming. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. Good to see you again.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I mean, I follow you since the very beginnings of my e-commerce journey. Seller Sessions was always on my ears in terms of strategies, the latest news. So I follow you for a very long period of time. So for sure, it's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to have you here.
Thank you.
Great. So before we start with today's topic, which is A9 algorithm, I always like to, for sure, first start with an introduction of the person I bring on board. So I know for sure a lot of people already know you, but for the people that might still not know you, can you briefly give an introduction of who you are and where you come from in terms of the commerce space? Yeah.
Yeah. So effectively, I discovered Amazon in 2015. I'm originally from the music industry, went into the tech industry, which led to being online commerce tickets in the music industry as well as the latter part. And then in 2015, I decided I want to reverse engineer marketplaces because I've sold
Yeah.
online and everything else. And originally I looked at eBay. And so at that time, I didn't really have any experience. Obviously, everyone's done a little bit of selling on eBay,
Yes.
listing secondhand goods because it's more like a flea market. So just to test it there, I didn't even know Amazon FBA existed. You looked at Amazon, you didn't realize the wall behind it, right?
Yeah.
And I remember this was the 31st of March 2015. And the reason I remember it is because prior to that, I was looking into eBay. I was on the eBay forums. I packed up some stuff around the house, took pictures in the sunshine in the garden, all very ghetto level stuff. As I walked to the end of the road, I realized that the post office had shut down 2 years ago. I'd already been working from home, running businesses anyway. And, it's like you put your head down, you're working 10, 12 hours a day on your projects. And it was one of those times where it's like, you need to find your thing. You're in between the projects. So I did the music industry and then I went into tech. And then from there was like this little airspace where I was testing loads of different things.
Yeah.
Most of them service-based businesses from PPC. So everything I have is kind of been derived from a format of PPC because when I discovered Amazon, that's when in 2015, they've already just introduced PPC on the platform, or it's very new around that period. Yeah.
The good times.
And so what happened is once I come back with my tail between my legs after going to the end of the road, find out it's shut down because I don't drive. I never learned to drive. I've spent most of my time DJing or in the studio or commuting to London, and I've never got round to learning to drive. So obviously eBay is no good for that if you're selling one item at a time and you have to go and get a bus. So all your margin disappears, your time in your day disappears and everything else. When I went back on the eBay forum, there it was. There was a URL, Amazon FBA. Click through and went, what's this? And I went, that is it. And I get a little shiver now. I knew from that moment on, this is what I've been looking for. And then I kind of built from there. So that was 2015. I'd done 3 test products in the UK. And even at the time, because I was experimenting with the early formation of PPC sponsored products on Amazon, I actually done a video, still up on YouTube now, 2015, to show you the correlation between buys through PPC and how it affects ranking. Now that's a huge amount because conversion rate is one of the biggest factors now. No matter how much money you spend or burn, if you don't have a tremendous conversion rate, it's going to have a knock-on effect to your organic ranking. So we did that, launched those 3 products, and then went boom straight into the US 3rd of November, and that's when I first launched. And from there, it moved into, I started to do a lot of the meetup events and stuff in the UK. We're running those. It wasn't very scalable. You get a high churn rate of people, and the level I wanted to speak to people at was the barrier to entry were low because you're putting on events, free alcohol, free food, free content. So you get a churn rate of tire kickers, people that come in and come out and come in, so you have a higher churn rate. And then by the time we've done that and talking about our early journey on Amazon and everything else, at the beginning of 2017, we launched Seller Sessions, which wasn't a podcast, right? So this is something for people to learn about finding your market fit in what you do.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same with, like, you might pick 10 marketing channels, 9 won't work, and you double down on the best one.
Yeah, for sure.
And so what happened with that is we got to a point where we were doing webinars every 2 weeks. So we kind of built a list from the webinars. The webinars were falling over because everyone's in hotels with poor dial-up rates. So it wasn't a great experience for the end user.
Yeah.
Then we took that and then we sent the traffic to YouTube. So started doing once a week YouTube, mail the list, get the algorithm, you know, get some signals there where external traffic, and started to build it from there. We built an array of shows from there, and then we go, okay, let's do a blog.
Yeah.
So we built sellersessions.com and then back optimized all the content with show notes and everything else and drove traffic there. But these were all single digit growth. By the time we got to October, we'd had 30 odd shows in the background, and then decided we're going to do a podcast. So we extracted the audio from the videos. We had already had the show notes in place and everything else, and it just took off like a rocket ship. So we actually found the medium that we should. From there, I started to speak around Europe and stuff, and then I met Dr. Ellis Whitehead, and this is how we got Databril now. So at the time, he was an algorithm expert in the data science, working on the original algorithm over at Jungle Scout.
That's great.
So when he came to me and says, I want to start a PPC software, I said, you're crazy, not going to touch it. Then we looked at it, and then the original formation of Databril was to work with brands with a tremendous amount of SKUs, because all the agencies found it a headache, because they were pricing per SKU basis on their monthly contracts and everything else. So we focused on 7-8 figure sellers. It was more larger accounts. That's adapted now. And from there, things kind of grew. So from that, we've done the first Seller Sessions live in 2019. Then we launched the Seller Poll Awards. And then after that come Branded by Women. So we're now on the third Seller Sessions, the third Branded by Women. This one will be offline. And this year is the 4th annual Seller Poll Awards.
Wow. What a journey, for sure. Long way. Yeah, I mean, I think for sure that's a huge Israel. I follow you, as I said, from the very beginning. And I think that happens to some people in the space, that when we discover Amazon FBA, then we discover that it's not just about selling a product. It's about also some people, as you're doing, building a community, events, podcasts. There are so many ramifications within the Amazon FBA, which I think for sure gives a space for everybody, which is great.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, most people do start out as sellers. Like, I will return back as a seller. It's only in about last 8 months to a year that I haven't been a seller, and that I did a buyout across my 3 businesses. So I own all the businesses now. I mean, Ellis is co-founder of Databril, but I own everything now exclusively outside of that deal. That's so what I did was last year dialed out the brand and was going to put all that money into a new brand, which we've got 6 products for and everything else. But it doesn't make any sense at the moment, because at the time logistics would have killed us. So let's say I launched that new brand in January of this year, it would just kill us. So now it's a waiting game to return back as a seller, which will happen. But now we're going to, you know, you're seeing with the war and stuff, material costs are going up. So, you know, timing, you know, we talk about, and I use a boxing metaphor here, you've got speed beats power, but timing beats everything. And so you still need, before you can go get speed to market, you got to hit your timing mechanisms correctly as well. So I will return back as a seller, because that's my bread and butter. I love doing that. But with everything that's going on, and I've got a world tour this year, speaking EU, Australia, mainland China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Europe, US tour. So there's a lot going on. So that will take place for the rest of the year. And then I'm looking forward to returning back to my bread and butter as a seller, and excited to start a new brand next year, you know?
That's great. That's great. Good. Very nice. Now let's slowly start jumping into today's topic, which
Yep.
I know you like a lot and you have good experience around, which is the A9 algorithm.
Yeah.
So let's start by introducing what is this A9 algorithm and how it
Mhm.
works in essence. Yeah.
Well, basically, Amazon across all their platforms have to work out a way to take billions of data points and then build relevance around those data points. With majority of this is coming through search on a 10,000-foot view.
Yeah.
So they effectively, most of it is built around machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they've got to effectively process billions of data points through purchases, interactions on the platform. So this is why with A9, this is behavioral. This is what a lot of people can kind of forget as well. It's in essence, it's around behavioral aspects and obviously relevance as well. And so the backbone here is gradient boosted trees. And effectively, these are decision trees, which is a machine learning technique for optimizing the predictive value of a model through successive steps in the process. And what they do is they use gradient boosted trees with pairwise ranking. And effectively, in the layman's term, pairwise is a way of assigning weights to those. So effectively, they're using endless training models, but in order to get there, it's like a very, very complex process that's impossible to get right all the time because it's based around the context of what is relevant versus what is not. And that kind of gives you, an overview. And my business partner, Ellis, he gave me an example because there's kind of this, what's the word for it? Snooty sneering between machine learning and statisticians, right? So statisticians, you've got more of a controlled environment, whereas he calls machine learning like a big bag of hammers, all of different sizes that get thrown out the bag, and then you don't get as much control over it. But the people that are into machine learning think it's all magical and stuff like that. So it's way above my pay grade. I'm not an engineer or anything, but I find it's kind of interesting in those dynamics,
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because just as you're explaining right now, AI for sure can give you a great benefit, but if you don't control it, that could potentially affect the whole overall performance of Amazon system. Because if the AI for some reason start getting like not under control, you must start losing all the ranks of positioning for specific products or things like that, which is gonna affect performance. Now, AI A9, sorry, for sure is also driven by specific metrics, right? When it comes to making decision, right?
Well, it's not. They use a complex set of training models called a feature selection. And so what they'll do is, let's just say they will design a training set and they'll have 150 features and they've got what's called forward selection, backwards elimination. And so what they will do is they will assign these number points. So 1 to say 150.
Yeah.
And what they do is then they nest down. So they'll take that 150, run tests, take it down to 50, and then reduce that down to 20 more so that they're honing in. But they'd also put randomization in there as well. So to give you a quick example, and it's an extreme example to give you an idea, let's just say they want to run a test on the height of a human, be it a man or a woman.
Okay.
Right. So in that, they might include age, right? They may include sex because often men are taller than women in most cases. Yeah. And then they'll throw something random in, like astrology sign, which is completely irrelevant to the process, or a random number. And so tests are designed rather than going, okay, this is all of the features and that is it. They have to go through a series of an elimination. And when you think with machine learning, it learns. Yeah. So they'll take something, they'll learn that process, pull back the data, learn that process, pull back the data, learn that. And it can just be an endless task of learning until you get a refinement, which is obviously the key point of building around relevance.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about that is that this for sure is what we see in the market when people try to manipulate the A9 algorithm.
Yeah.
We see that the manipulation doesn't last. And I think it's because of what you're mentioning, that the system keep reassessing your listing, keep reassessing all the behavior on your listing. And if the performance was just simulated for a few weeks or months and then it
Yeah.
goes down, it's going to affect you, right?
But if you think about it, right, you don't necessarily, how do I put it? Yeah, we all massage and manipulate. PPC is manipulating
Yeah.
the organic algorithm, right? Because, or at least your attempt is, let's do top of search, let's have a tremendous conversion rate, let's have a
Yes.
knock-on effect. So it's all manipulation of some kind.
Yeah.
But the reality is, let's look at some of the realities. Most of the time, when you get to the black hat end of the spectrum through the manipulation, it's because the products are shit.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
and the problem is you can't polish a turd.
Yeah.
And so if your product's not relevant, your price point's not right, and the product is shit,
Yeah.
of course you're going to need as much manipulation as possible.
Yeah.
But then bounce off of that. If you look at another criteria, is that if you go and get a product and you want to go into a really grandfathered in market like electronics,
Yeah.
and you can't compete because you can't get top of search, the cost per click's too high, the moat built around reviews is too high and everything else, that becomes the individual decision to pick a market that you can't compete in. It's the same thing. Like right now, I should have it ready for seller sessions, but I've got the data science team to run these tests because one of the most common things someone says to me, Dan, look, why is this not converting? And I say to them, have you checked the average price of the page based on that keyword?
Yeah.
And they go, no. I went, okay, let's do a search now. Okay. And what I'm hoping to come out of that test is to prove something about premium price products versus lower price products and the velocity of ranking and the impacts it has and the value for money that you often get. Because who are you to decide this is now a premium product because your production cost has spiraled out of control?
Yeah.
You drink the Kool-Aid and convince yourself, right? I would say that the best way on Amazon, which is tough, it's not an easy task. Can you produce a premium product for a cheaper price than anyone else?
Yeah.
That's magic.
That's the magic for sure.
That's magic. And don't forget, like when you're doing PPC and when you're working on organic rank or whatever your exercise is, send external traffic, ultimately all you're doing is amplifying what it already is. If it's a shit product, it's still a shit product.
Yeah.
Yeah. All marketing is an amplification.
Yes.
That's all it comes down to. So get your product right first, because you're not going to get conversion rate without visibility.
Yeah.
And once you've got the visibility, it's down to the product to do the work. And you can write great titles and you can write creepy copy and
I was going to touch on that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can write whatever you like, but if it's shit, it's still shit. I know it sounds really coarse and hard, what I'm saying. I just want, like, I try and live in an objective reality. Yeah. Whereas I think we've got to be careful of living your own truth.
Yeah.
Your own truth is a perspective. Do you see what I mean? But if you can be objective about stuff.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway from everything you're mentioning is that regardless of all the strategies you may find out there for manipulation, if the product doesn't end up sticking to the market, like people don't like it, I mean, there isn't really any magic you can do. I mean, because conversions are going to go down, then it's a spiral of death, as Casey mentions, and then that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
Great. So, I mean, for sure, when people hear about the A9 algorithm, it's something very abstract, it's something very complex. And I know that there isn't much we can do besides making sure we put a great product out there. But is there any maybe considerations people can take or tips or maybe strategies that you think A9 algorithm really likes that? For example, external traffic, some strategies like that. Is something you can touch on that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the hard thing about external traffic, we know there's a signal there, but no one has anything to properly back it up.
That's the
Like
thing.
concrete, hardcore. This is all they have is their own data, but they don't have nowhere near the amount of data points that you need.
Yeah.
And that's not to dispel anything. I agree. There is something going on with external traffic. We
For
call
sure,
it signals. We called it this. We called it that. But no one has any goddamn proof, do they?
No.
So we'll cover this at Seller Sessions because they are strategies to work out individually for yourself as part of the content for you to try and do, because we know what's there, but it's hard to define. And the thing is, people run these strategies and they work for them and they get more sales. Then carry on doing it. The point I'm making is it's not concrete. There isn't the proof to guarantee exactly what it is. And also, none of the science literature, the video content from the A9 team, everything I've got in terms of research doesn't specifically say we love outside traffic, We're reading between the lines, and that's cool because you've got to discover stuff for yourself. So, you know, what is one of the key strategies at the moment? A discount code, you know, a coupon code on your listing.
Yeah, a big one.
And run top of search. Yeah. Like in terms of legal terms, because once you get into giveaways and all that, do you see where I'm coming from? And I'm not saying that's guaranteed to work, but when you've got a nice bright coupon code sitting on the listing, and you're in a top of search placement, you've got a decent price, people eat with their eyes, the images are good, you're using the right keyword, because a lot of the time you find it really comes down to relevance. It's too much to get into now, but I did do a show, if you don't mind me mentioning.
Sure, for sure.
Which is the 5-point system to dial in for relevance, and the key factor behind it, what we covered on the show, is like you have a number between 1 and 5. Your 4 and 5s are the ones that are super dialed in. Your 3 is your category market. Your 1s and 2s are nowhere near as relevant, but they could convert and they could have a lower conversion rate. And one of the biggest things I find what people do, which is great, is that point of differentiation. So what you've got to be careful of is that you differentiate so much you go away from the core keywords. And then you're into neighboring keywords with lower conversion rate. Then you go, well, let's try gift keywords. Now, gift keywords are going to be very tough to deal with as well. I know people that have sold businesses based on nailing the gift keyword thing. But what you do with gift keywords, you're going into a lottery. So you might go in and say gifts for girls. The only relevance on that page of when they turn up is one, they're looking for ideas. So effectively you enter a lottery of the individual taste of that person. Do they like ideas?
That's the thing.
And that's where inherently your conversion rate is going to be lower. Most of these products have tremendous amount of reviews and grandfathered in as well. So unless you start hitting more of the longer tail, the toughest part, I think, or what most people still get wrong today, they focus so much on search volume rather than the frequency rank and using brand analytics report. Because a lot of the tools are brilliant at producing keywords, but if your keywords are not in the brand analytics report, which is based around sales and depends where you are in the frequency rank range, then a lot of those may generate you impressions without sales. And you might get a miscommunication of the validation of the product, meaning if you get say the US marketplace has long tail, Europe doesn't have long tail, it has additional keywords, but there's not long tail. So that same product that's got market fit in Germany might have 10 related keywords versus 100 in the US based on the third-party tool that does search volume. But you'll run a brand analytics report and you might find there's only 5 in the US and 3 in Germany. Now you're moving towards a zero-sum game. So it's better to be relevant than volume, but you need enough volume to warrant the sales to create the velocity to get the ranking.
Yeah, for sure. It's tricky. Yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you. Great. Now I want to start touching on something that for sure you get a lot of questions, which is the myths around A9, which is A10 is already out there.
No, it's nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
What do you think about that?
All it is just made up clickbait. People just pulling stuff out their ass. It doesn't exist. It's not in the literature. And why would Amazon throw away A9 to start A10? Doesn't make any, they're not a software provider in the sense that they're selling, like this is the new update, this is the new version. It is A9. That's what it is. There isn't any more. There'll be internal updates of the algorithm. They'll push the envelope. They'll get new developments and everything else. But it's not A10. It's none of it's in the science literature. None of it's in the video content. It's not out there. It's just blog posts people make up because it makes them feel good about themselves.
Yeah,
it's nonsense.
Yeah, 100%. Great. When it comes to marketplaces, have you seen that there is maybe some difference in terms of how the A9 algorithm works, maybe in USA compared to Europe, or is the same essence in terms of
effectively what happens, which is another misnomer, people think that with A9 they roll out an update and it affects everything. It doesn't. What these are training sets. Going back to the featured selection, there's other training sets that they will do with different magnitude for it, and it's done on a category basis, not globally across the platform. So when we see rollouts, and we may see them choose 2 categories, they may choose home and kitchen, sports and outdoors. That gives the impression to those people that sell in those categories, because a lot of people do within the community, because there's certain categories that is full of the Amazon FBA community. So they're all seeing these changes in a couple of these categories. But what about in books or no? Because they're tests that they run. They can pull these tests back, but they do. So when they're running tests, when you get an algorithm update, it's platform basis on a category level done by different testing A9 scientists and team members that run these tests. So there'll be a team in Germany, there'll be a team in the UK, because you've got to think as well, textual context. There's 3 parts of the built-in search, including the hunger score. There's a category query score and one other that escapes me. You think there's a language component to that. There's behavioral and there's textual. Why would someone who doesn't speak 10 different languages be working on something to affect Japan when they're based on the US team? They can't run precise tests there. Like the teams are not just all in the US. They're localized team for each of these platforms. They may share across. We don't know that because there's no proof of that. But it's done on a category level on the platform, not globally.
I think now it makes sense what you just explained, which is some people are within the same categories in the, as you say, the community, and they feel that when they do an update, it's like updating Windows is the whole Amazon. But now it makes sense what you have explained that.
And it's easy to believe that because someone puts it on a post, someone shares it in a mastermind, someone does this, and there's a lot of people that sell in the same category. And what are they going to do? I hear you. I'm getting the same thing. And then they choose 3 categories. It might be pets, and it might be sports and outdoors, and it might be home and kitchen. So there you go. That's a big catchment in our community, outside supplements, electronics, and a few others, right?
Yeah, totally makes sense. That's great. Great insight. Thank you for sharing that. I think to start concluding today, I always like to ask a final question just to make sure we have covered everything today. So is there any missing tip or maybe area that you feel we didn't cover today around the A9 algorithm that you think the audience might find helpful that you would like to touch?
So there's a factor within A9 called negative and positive labels. Okay. So if we were to draw the conclusion back to listings, like I call when people are optimizing listings, don't see it as a flat vector, see it as 3D. And what I mean by that is with negative and positive labels, when they're running these tests, so a positive label would be time on the page, it would be clicking and scrolling, it'd be consumption, might be playing a video, etc., etc. They're the positive labels. Then they would then click and add that to cart. That's another positive signal. A negative label is what they do is this listing is become unseen, or they left and they clicked on one of the products as they scroll down the product page that belongs to someone else, or they come to the page and leave instantly. So there's no time on page. So now it's more about creating an environment of engagement. So a lot of people think I need keyword stuff in, I need to write this text like this, etc., make it really salesy, No, engagement. Think about engagement, because what happens here is you're getting micro credits, and what a micro credit is is one, they landed on the page, two, they stayed on the page for a period of time, three, they scrolled up and down and engaged, four, they clicked on the images, five, they clicked on the, you know, all of those become micro credits until it hits the cart. Because if you think is that they need the nuances in order on that specific keyword to rank other products. So if you send traffic to your page and it bounces off versus someone who went through and done 5 actions, including add to cart, they are going to get a stronger signal in terms of adjustment, in terms of indexing for ranking versus the one that's bounced off because it shows less relevance.
Yes.
So see about building your listing in the engagement level. How can I keep these people on the page as long as possible? Keep them engaged, add to cart, then purchase. Not an easy task. It's a mental process that you change your thought process. 3D versus vector, flat vector, you know?
Yeah, I think now everything makes sense. Usually, in terms of when I'm remembering now, when ManyChat was huge, I remember some flows people are doing just that, like go to a competitor, drop off, go to my image, click on it, see the price, the comments, and then add to cart. So I think that comes down to that kind of manipulation people was trying to do, as you mentioned.
Well, add to cart is a very, very strong signal, but a lot of people have tried the add to cart, but it's just not sophisticated enough using Upwork and all those kind of things, or micro workers. It just doesn't work, you know, and none of that works unless you've got a confirmed purchaser logged in anyway. You can't do it from a logged out process. So none of that works.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, I mean, I think we covered quite big topic today. I mean, we covered great questions, great tips. We also demystify some things, which is great.
Yeah.
So I think, is there anything else you would like to add before we close today's topic, or you think we cover everything that's essential in essence?
No, I just thank everyone for the continued support of what we do with seller sessions. We're up to nearly 900 episodes. And the work that we're doing with Seller Sessions Live, branded by women, and that's it really. It's we've been around for a while now. Been in the game here for about 7 years, and I'm surprised no one's sick of hearing my voice after nearly 900 episodes. But we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, that's great. I mean, I remember last year when you had that streak of almost 80 episodes on a row. That was huge.
Yeah, the COVID run. 77 days in a row we done podcasts.
Wow, big one. I think almost a world record for sure.
Yeah, we did look at the Guinness Book of Records. It didn't go anywhere, but because it was like, well, it's not a podcast really, because it was a live, wasn't it?
I see,
so we didn't hear back, but we wanted to check if that could possibly be recorded in the Guinness Book of Records.
Yeah,
the most consecutive
episodes.
Episodes from a live webinar or whatever, you know.
That's great. Well, before I say bye, for sure, I want to thank you once again for coming. I mean, as I already mentioned, you're a big idol of mine. I learned a lot from you, all the content, all the events. For sure, I'm going to be going to Seller Sessions and Branded by Women, which I recommend everybody hearing and watching this to go. Grab the tickets before they are sold out. And that's it. I mean, thank you. Definitely, I'm going to have you on a next episode to discuss this topic and other ones in the future. I'm looking forward to keep in touch, okay?
Thank you.